Hello, it's Johnny from Eurogamer here, and as if I even needed to tell you, this is the Final Fantasy VII Remake, because Square Enix has had its conference at E3 now, and oh goodness me, they really went for that, didn't they? That is genuinely phenomenal. I mean, that is, it's not a high bar, is it? But that is the best gameplay I think we've seen of any of the conferences here at E3 2019. That was really genuinely impressive. And if you've been watching the channel at all ever, you'll know that I don't really care about Final Fantasy normally. Aoife got me to play Final Fantasy VII on the channel in an episode of Late to the Party, and you know, I never played it as a kid, but I really, really want to play this game. I mean, it is, for one thing, absolutely gorgeous. It's kind of, you look at this game now and you think, when kids were playing Final Fantasy VII, and they were thinking about it when they were in class and they couldn't wait to get home and play it, that's what it looked like in their heads. You know, when you kind of like build something up in your mind to just your imagination runs rampant. You're like, yeah, that's what it looks like. That's actually what I think people will have been imagining. It's absolutely gorgeous. And of course, I think they did a smart thing by showing off really early game stuff. So, you know, you've got Cloud riding on the roof of the train, and then he jumps onto the platform, and you've got those three guards kind of milling about. Like, it's instantly recognizable and instantly evocative. And I think, genuinely, I mean, obviously, everyone's bowled over by how nice this game looks and how well it's lit and stuff. But you think about the fact that the original game looks so different, like, by comparison, almost laughably so. And yet they've managed to get the exact same atmosphere across. It's so evocative. It's really genuinely quite impressive. Because I mean, this is a complete remake 22 years later, and yet it still feels sort of similar. But of course, you know, this being a remake 22 years later, it does look very different, and the character designs, I mean, you know, the Cloud one hasn't really changed much since we saw it announced a few years ago at E3 for the first time with that very brief trailer. But I mean, Barrett looks like such a badass. I'll be honest, he wasn't really my favourite character in Final Fantasy VII when I first played it, because he just looked so sort of blocky and weird. Like, he sort of looked like a man who shouldn't exist. But now he's a character model that makes sense, is in proportion, has gun arms, is genuinely quite handsome. He just looks absolutely brilliant. And what's more, and to be honest, I'll pause here and say I really feel like I'm just gushing about this game, but, you know, if you do know me, you'll know how big of a thing that is to actually have me excited for a Final Fantasy game. I really think they're doing some smart things with the camera transitions, you know, because obviously Final Fantasy VII was pretty bold at moments, you know, when big bosses would turn up or whatever. It would really try and make a moment out of it, and it does it in a very similar way in the demo, at least from what we've seen, but also I don't know, they're really pushing the envelope with it. They're really throwing that camera around. So again, they're sort of invoking the spirit of the original, but really punching it up a notch, which I think is smart, because, you know, this is a game people have played loads, and they know it inside and out. And so even if they do love it, and, you know, they're really excited to jump back into that world, there is a kind of a pressure. The pressure is on to make fans want to play it all the way through again, and if it doesn't feel right, they're going to kind of be put off. But I think it genuinely, like, I think they're onto a good thing with what they're doing with the presentation, because that was really smooth. And then obviously, you know, it has to be, because not only are there people who played the original and grew up with it, but there's going to be a whole generation of people playing this game for the first time, because, I mean, let's face it, if there's a teenager seeing that, they'll be like, that looks great. I really liked Final Fantasy 15. I think I'll play this. I think, to be honest, those kids, those teens, or, you know, those young people, God, listen to me, I'm so old. They would have had a hard time, I think, going back and playing Final Fantasy 7 and being as impressed and as immersed as people were when they actually played it at the time, which is totally fine. Like, it's a game that looks dated. I don't think it's unfair to say that, because it does. But yeah, I think that it's impressive enough in its presentation to add something new for those who played the original, and also just to impress the people who are going to be playing it for the first time, who are used to really polished games. But anyway, I'll stop going on about how it looks, because this is the first time we've actually managed to see combat in Final Fantasy VII's Remake, and to be honest, I think they have made some really smart design decisions here. Because obviously, you will know from the presentation, I'm sure, but you make standard attacks in real time, just with your sword, sort of standard hits that will do damage, but they're not the most efficient way to wear down your enemies. But doing those attacks is essential in order to fill up your meter. It's the ATB meter, I think. So when you've got a charge on that, you can then switch into tactical mode, which will be instantly familiar to anyone who's played Final Fantasy before, because you've got your item menu up there, you can start casting spells, and you can do sort of different targeted attacks. So it's a hybrid basically between, you know, fast-paced action, and then when you enter tactical mode, it's not even like time freezes like, you know, in Final Fantasy VII, the original, where it just sort of everyone's standing there while you flick through the menus and stuff like that. It slows it down. You've got a sense of almost sinking into the moment and thinking about what you're going to do, and it's just really clever. I think the way it just lets you slip in and out of these two modes is great, especially when you consider you can also control the characters individually and switch between them like at will. It's just like, I don't know, I think the whole thing is really smart. I think, you know, obviously these people have a lot of practice making Final Fantasy games and they know what it takes to make an engaging one. But then I think there must have been a temptation to just kind of do Final Fantasy VII by the numbers. And this is a bold step. Like, this is a big change for this game. And when you consider how invested the fan base is, that must have been a decision that they didn't take lightly. And yet we've got this system, this hybrid thing, where you're kind of like doing real-time hack and slash, and then, whoop, you're into like classic Final Fantasy stuff. And I think that's really clever. It's updating it for the new fans, but leaving in enough that the fans who were there the first time round won't feel left out. And I think that's very clever. And we got a release date, which is brilliant. It's coming out in March 2020. March next year is going to be absolutely bananas because we've got a new console generation coming. So basically, all the publishers are going to try and get their current gen stuff out before the end of the financial year. So everyone look forward to having no free time in March of 2020, but never mind. So yeah, I realise I've been talking very fast and very excitedly about a game, but sod it, Final Fantasy VII Remake looks brilliant. I mean, you can probably hear the horns of LA going absolutely bananas for it as well. So what can I say? The energy here at E3 is very high. And what's more, and this is really delicious, I'm going to play Final Fantasy VII Remake this week. I've got an appointment to check it out, which means I'm going to play it before IFA, which, to be honest, just that's hilarious. But I'm going to, of course, make a video off the back of that once I've got hands-on, and I will let you know what I thought. So do come back and watch that. But in the meantime, since we got a longer version of the trailer that was previously released for Final Fantasy VII Remake, I figured I'd just leave you with that to bask in its niceness, and I will catch you again very, very soon. I honestly cannot believe I'm excited for a Final Fantasy game. Like, wonders never cease. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.
These sewer rats appear to call themselves Avalanche, sir.
You can have it for saving my life. You think he's a keeper?
Oh my god. Y'all gotta look at the bigger picture here. Nothing worth fighting for was ever won without sacrifice.
Help me!
Have you been a good girl?
I heard you're having second thoughts.
I know we have to think big if we're going to make a difference. But not like this. I feel trapped. My turn.
Get going.
Got you now!
You're not real. You're...
Cloud, I have a favor to ask of you. Run away. You have to leave. You have to live.
You bastard! Yeah!
Hold on to that hatred.